Live from the rooftop of the Hermann London Real Estate Group in beautiful downtown Maplewood, it's the St. Louis Realtor Podcast with your host, Adam Kruse.
Welcome everybody to the St. Louis Realtor Podcast, live from the Shannon's Rehab.
Yay! Hey. I bought a house.
Yeah, hey everybody. So Shannon bought a house.
I did. I bought a house.
Are you going to live here?
No, I am not.
You bought an investment property.
I did. I bought an investment property.
Okay, so tell us, well, first of all, what part of town are we in?
We're in the Grove.
We're in the Grove. How did you find this place?
I actually found it on the MLS.
Oh, this was an MLS listed property? Mm-hmm. And you bought it? Did you negotiate? Did you work some deals?
I bought it. No, there was a couple other offers on the table. But I did negotiate kind of with the seller directly, which is probably a little odd because he didn't have an agent. He had a transaction broker.
Okay.
So I don't really technically know how that works but the transaction broker was never present really in any part of this transaction.
Well, we'll talk about that on another podcast.
Okay.
How about that? So can you tell us how much you paid for the property?
$60.
Okay. And you can look around on this video and you can see we're sitting amongst the studs. It looks like you guys have already done some demo, or did you buy it like this with Rehab started?
Yep, I bought it exactly as you see it right now. So I think he was in the midst of doing this rehab. I think he was in over his head, didn't really know where to go.
And you saw that and you thought, hey, my first rehab, some other guy's in over his head, but I got this.
Right.
Okay, so I saw a picture of you on Facebook where you guys were already like doing some sort of work. What have you done already?
So the first thing that we had to tackle was the yard. The weeds were probably as tall as my shoulders.
Oh, wow. So you did a bunch of yard work already?
Yes. But there was so much trash and debris among the weeds and in the yard that I could have paid somebody to come out and do it, but it was pretty expensive. So I just kind of brought my weed whacker out and just started knocking down the weeds. And it took a few days to actually get through it and cut down some of the weeds that were really grown into some pretty large, almost trees.
Well, I'm sure that we can agree, and when we're doing our podcast 5 years from now, you're going to say, don't do your own yard work, hire someone for that, right? I'm sure we can agree that your highest and best use is not that, but my opinion is this is your first, it's not really your first rehab, but this is kind of your first rehab to be a rehabber, right?
Well, yeah. So, right. Yeah. So I've done other projects. I've done other rehabs of sorts, and I live in a rehab that we did. Right. But this is A to Z. This is everything. So I have not done a rehab to this degree.
Okay.
And that's where I think I saw this as an opportunity. I know what kind of things cost in general. So when I walked in, it really is a shell. And I knew I was buying a shell. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's almost easier than buying something that you have to knock down walls
and find a bunch of secrets.
And you find a bunch of secrets and surprises that you weren't prepared for.
Well, just like when I buy an investment property and a rental property or whatever, I think it makes sense to spend, at least a weekend or so working on the place because you're really familiarizing yourself with the property, its problems, all the little weird kinks about it, right? And in your case, I guess you're going to rehab it and then sell it?
Yes. So we are going to fix it up and
sell it.
Resell
but then
it.
You'll know when they do their inspections, there are going to be no surprises for you, probably.
Right.
And that's the idea.
I'm hoping so. Absolutely. If everything is done correctly, absolutely. It should be a very flawless inspection for the buyers.
Well, one of the ideas that we wanted to do on this podcast is go through actual numbers, right?
Yes.
And so people always talk about, I'm going to buy a property. Or, I see on Facebook people like, looking to buy more rentals. I posted something like that the other day. Right. I would think people are sitting there wondering, okay, Shannon, where the heck did you get the $60,000 to buy this house? And where are you going to get the money to do the rehab? And I am not the kind of guy who would ever ask such a personal question. But you told me you wanted to talk about that, right?
I don't have a problem talking about the personal aspect of it or the numbers just because I think it does help other people out. I think that that's what helps me out or helped me out through some of this process is really understanding and listening to other podcasts or other investors really roll out the numbers to understand how they got from point A to point B. And so for me, I did a HELOC, so a home equity line of credit. So I took out money based on the equity of my house.
So the house that you live in has equity, meaning it's worth X and you only owe X, so you're able to borrow on this difference?
Yes.
I shouldn't have used X's both time, right? It was worth X, you owed Y, and you're able to borrow on the difference.
Right.
Okay, which is interesting because I think a lot of people think, oh, I would love to do a rehab if only I had more money.
Right. So we bought our house 10 years ago, and it was a rehab. So we've put a lot into it. But now after 10 years, for one, I guess it appreciated pretty quickly after we did the rehab. So we 2 years ago did a HELOC. The house appraised at $350. I think appraisals are pretty interesting because they can really skew from almost $100,000.
2 years ago, you thought we would like to have a home equity line of credit. Were you already a realtor at the time?
I was a realtor, and what we were trying to get into starting to buy investment properties and rentals at the time.
So you called a lender. They hired an appraiser. They came out. They said it's worth $350. They knew what you owed on it.
Yes.
And they said, we'll give you a loan for 80% of the equity, or how'd they do that?
Yeah, so it's 80% of the equity in the house. So,
or is it 80% of the appraised value minus what you owe?
Yeah, it's 80% of the appraised value minus what you owe.
Okay. And so that was, in your case, at least $60,000.
Yeah. So in that case, it was $100,000.
Okay.
So initially, but we were having a baby, and it started to get a little bit overwhelming. So what I ended up doing with the cash at the time was just hard money lending for a while, for about a year and a half or so. But we got that money back at the beginning of this year. And since the beginning of this year, I really have been hard hitting it, trying to find investment properties, as in rentals.
Right.
And I think the hardest part for any investor is just getting started. You know, it's the analysis paralysis.
Absolutely.
What do I want? And I've seen other investors, and I've worked with them, come to go, I have 100,000, which seems to be a rounded number, and now I want the most for my money. But I don't know what that means necessarily. Everybody has to come to terms with what that means to them.
Exactly.
And so is it cash flow? Is it just a solid investment that you can sell later, that it appraises? You know, so there's all these factors, and that we should, you know, we'll do another podcast on all the different ways that investors figure that out.
So you knew you had 100,000 available, and on this property, you came in, you said, okay, I can buy it for 60. Did you do any sort of bring the contractors over to evaluate what the rehab was going to cost, or how'd you decide?
Not really. I kind of knew, you know, we have spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are widely available to you
for rehab costs.
Yeah, kind of guesstimates or estimates now. So I really take those. The one thing I was not sure about was the plumbing. So I did have the plumber I use to come over, because I knew that would be the most, I thought, expensive part of the rehab, because I thought it was pretty much all new. It was going to have to be redone underneath the basement floor to all the way out to the actual
Did you do
sewer.
Inspections and find?
No, it was just a 10-day cash deal.
Wow, you closed in 10 days?
No, because there were title issues.
Okay, you agreed to close in 10 days with no inspections?
Right.
No, not a sewer ladder line. You just
Mm-mm.
assumed the sewer ladder line is crushed and we need an all new one.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So that's interesting. That's still, I guess, conservative approach if you budget it in for worst case scenarios, right? Okay. Right. And tell me, what did you think the whole rehab is going to cost?
So I thought at worst about our highest was maybe $90,000,
including the purchase price.
No.
You're going to put 90 more into it.
Right.
Okay.
So ultimately what we had to do is go get another HELOC loan. So I
on your house?
On my house.
Okay.
So I switched banks. I went over to Central Bank. I have a relationship with a guy over there. And I did a 90% HELOC.
Oh, they had a better program, 90%.
They did. They have up to 95, but you have to
Wow.
really. I think it's a very under the table kind of type thing where they really got to know you and know where your money is and what you're doing.
Okay, so you're willing and able to spend an additional $90,000 on this property.
Yeah. So we actually did the new HELOC. And we did another appraisal, which is why we probably joke about appraisals. So the appraisal came back at $415 this time.
Okay, right. Yeah, I always joke about appraisals.
I mean, it's a game. It's a total game. And so we were, the HELOC in total now was $197,000.
Holy cow.
So that's way more than we
You're loving
need. Right.
Yeah.
But that does allow us to, pay off the other HELOC because we're transferring everything over to Central Bank. We are doing that'll allow us to do the rehab, and if an investment property, another one, either rehab or rental kind of pops up, it allows us the down payment for that. I don't know that it allows us enough to buy outright another rehab.
Well, it's good that you have more than you need because, on every rehab TV show, it's like, we don't have enough money, and then it cuts to commercial, right?
Yes.
And so hopefully you'll have enough money even if you find out something crazy.
Right. And really the budgets kind of come down to no more than 80 is what I really think we can. I'm trying to keep it at 70 to 75. I think no more than 80 should be realistic. I mean, because you got to remember there's holding costs.
Uh-huh.
There's the cost of the HELOC.
Right.
So
there's going to be realtor fees.
the insurance is very expensive for rehab.
Insurance. Once you get it all done, are you going to do staging?
Yes. And that's minimum, what, $3,000?
I mean, depends on who you hire.
Yeah. But I have very specific staging in mind.
Okay.
So much so that I'm actually thinking of just buying my own furniture.
Okay. Well, then, when did you buy this place? So today
At the
we're in
end
September.
of August.
So you bought it a
Very
couple
end-
weeks ago.
Yeah. So about a month ago, or right at probably 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
3 weeks ago, and all you've done is yard work?
Right. So it's always a lot more complicated, as you know. People have asked that 1,000 times over. So what have you done? What have you done? Absolutely nothing besides the yard work and trying to get quotes together.
You've been getting quotes.
Yes. So there's a few more trees to take down than I was expecting. And trying to get a tree service over here has been challenging. And then I think the first quote came in at about $15,000, and
Wow.
I had about $5,000 in the budget.
Do we really
So
need
it's
to
a
get the
pretty big-
trees taken down before we can take down this,
Framing?
framing? I mean, can this all be going on
Well,
at
really, I
once?
want to make it watertight. So it does need a new roof. I think I feel like the roof leaks somewhere, and I think there's like a corner over there I can kind of, I don't feel like it's watertight.
Okay.
And so I want to make it watertight.
Start with the new roof before you start putting a bunch of money on the inside?
Yes. So I want but I also need to do the tuck pointing because the tuck pointer needs to build up and redo some of the parapet walls.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have the tuck pointer and the roofer kind of in cahoots together and at the same time. But to do the roof, I have to get the trees taken care of because they're looming right over the roof. And
Okay,
so once I start cutting them, I don't want them to cut over a new roof.
So part of the whole closing in 10 days thing meant that you weren't able to take any of that time while you didn't own it to start getting bids.
Not really.
If you would have done a typical 30 to 45 day closing, next one you do, will you try for a little bit longer closing and then be trying to get all those bids before you've even bought it?
Maybe.
Okay. And I guess your holding costs on this aren't that crazy per month. Can you kind of give me an idea what they are per month?
Well, right now, since we switched the HELOC, it's about 4%. I don't have any water or electricity. I don't have any utilities coming into the house at all. So I don't really have utilities. And so it's really the HELOC and the insurance.
So did you
at
get
this
vacant
point.
property insurance?
I
or
did. And rehab insurance, which is exponentially
More expensive? Okay.
I think it's more than my homeowners
Well,
for just 6 months.
so with all of the, I guess that's because you live at home and you're kind of protecting the house, right? Now they
Right.
know this place is vacant and anyone could break in. And so with all this work you're planning on doing, what's your timeline?
My timeline is 6 months.
6 months. So March, which is perfect. That's a great time to be trying to sell, right?
Right.
And so hopefully you get the heat going in here before wintertime.
Well, that is kind of the plan, is to try and get everything watertight, new roof, tuck pointing, and utilities in to keep it warm throughout the winter.
Once you have people over here working, how often are you going to be here?
Probably all the time. I'll probably be the project manager.
So there'll be someone here tiling or framing or whatever, and you're going to be here kind of finding work to do too, just to keep eyes on everything?
Now, I won't be actually here working, but I'll be popping in constantly, and
okay.
like a project manager.
Which you have the flexibility to do. If somebody that's listening or watching has the opportunity, wants to do this, but they have a full-time job, would you say they can't do it unless they can be here all the time? Or do you think they should just be kind of like coming by maybe after work or at lunch or something?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is I think you can pop by during lunch and after work and see where they're at. Have the contractors, they can call you during the day and when they have questions, because they have 1,000 questions as they go through the project.
And you're calling yourself the project manager. Is that the same thing as the general contractor? Meaning you're managing all the subs and everything?
Yes.
Is it going to be your job if they need more mortar? Is it going to be your job to run to Home Depot and get it? Or is that their job?
I'm going to say that's going to be their job.
Mm-hmm.
But if need be, I could do it.
Okay. Okay.
I've done that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure
on
that
past projects.
you ran your numbers, right? And so you know this area really well, probably better than anyone.
I'm actually working on another rehab with an investor. So that's more of a client. It's exactly the same footprint. It's a shotgun style house. So it'll be 1 bedroom on the main floor, finished basement.
Is this going to be a finished basement?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
So
just
in order,
1 bedroom on the main floor?
Yeah. So shotgun style homes don't typically have a lot of square footage, enough to have 2 bedrooms at traditional size anyway. So usually what you'll find is a living area, kitchen, 1 bedroom, then downstairs is the bedroom and another finished room. So depending on how you work egress, it could be 2 bedrooms.
Okay. And so assuming the market continues to be at least as good as it is now, or hopefully in your case appreciates, do you have any idea what you would kind of be hoping to sell the place for?
So close to around the 2 mark, 200,000.
Okay.
That's pretty much our mark for the other rehab that I'm working with on the investor. I've seen that pulled off more than a few times. I've seen up to 250.
Okay, this must be a pretty hot area if you're going to sell a 1-bedroom house for 200.
Well, it'd be 2 bedroom.
Oh, because of the basement.
Yes.
Okay.
And no, it will be a legitimate 2 bedroom because egress has to.
You're going to build or like carve out bigger windows and all sorts of stuff.
Yes. Yes. So there's a couple things that you have to make sure the electrical box is in a common area. Otherwise, it can't be called a bedroom, because right now the electrical box is in that back room, which we're going to do as a bedroom. So that has to be moved to a common area, and for us to be able to call it a bedroom.
Well, it's good that you know all those rules in advance, right? Otherwise, that could be another like, oh my gosh, we have to move the electric box. Oh, break to commercial.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the other thing is the city of St. Louis has added a lot of new codes as of mid-September.
Oh, they did?
Yes, a lot of them. And there are a ton of new electrical codes. It's almost an overhaul of the electrical code here in the city of St. Louis. So much so that they're calling for some pretty drastic things that are going to exponentially increase the cost of doing electricity.
So are you meeting with like a couple different like super professional electric companies?
Yes.
And getting their bids, but also just like learning from them, listening to what they say?
Yeah. So I've met with one. He's gone through the new code with me, and he showed me the email. He goes, if you try to get bids and they're half of what I'm offering or bidding, he goes, it may not pass, and I want you to know why. So, they're calling for arc fault breakers, normal breakers, $5, and arc fault breakers, $40.
Wow.
So if you have to do all those, I mean, you're talking about something that was $1,600 previously is now $3,000.
Holy cow.
So that's something I'm going to have to figure out, manage, and
remember,
make up some costs, I think.
Yeah. Many podcasts ago, we interviewed Than Merrill. and he's got he comes around
The
now and
fortune
does
builders.
like the seminars. But he used to have the TV show. They were on HGTV,
Flip This House.
or whatever. And one of the things I learned from watching that TV show was about how they would make their contractors sign something that said, great, here's what we pay. That's fine. Here's what we're agreeing to. But if you're not done by this date, then we're going to reduce what I owe you by X amount. So every week that you go by or every day that you go by, then I owe you less money, which puts a deadline on the contractor. I don't know if you remember us talking about that. Okay,
so here's my thought process, because the investor tried to do that with the contractor over at the one across a few blocks away. And he was like, so what he ultimately ended up doing is extending the time, almost doubling it. Mm-hmm. And then he is like, but if we get done early, we want a reward. Mm-hmm. So we want more money if we're done early. Mm-hmm. And then if we're not done on time, yes, you can penalize us. But instead of it taking, say 6 weeks, he was now saying, but now it's going to take 12 weeks. Mm-hmm. I mean...
So did she agree to that?
No, I didn't think that was a really good idea, because I'm like, of course he's going to be done early. He extended it out. He doubled his time.
Well, so that's a savvy contractor trying to negotiate and kind of play games back, right? I mean...
Right.
I think it's fair if they say, I think we can get it done in 4 weeks, let's just say. It's fair if you want to add that they add on maybe 2 weeks or something like that and say 6 weeks. And that's fair, right? But for me as an investor, all I want to know is, when is it going to be done?
Right.
So I can plan.
I think if you hire someone halfway reputable, they want to get the job done too, so that they can get paid. This is how they make their living. Now, if you're going to hire some Yahoo who, because he's so cheap, but he doesn't show up...
Well, so you're going to probably have a mix, right? You're probably going to hire super professional plumber, super professional electric company, but like your flooring guy or the guy who's going to paint or someone like that. I mean, you're probably not going to go with Angie's List AAA rated guy. You're going to be like,
no, not necessarily. Someone who's good, who's come by recommendation, maybe, but for sure. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So there will certainly be a mix, but the guys, in regards to the permits, because we are going to pull permits.
Permits, perfect. Yeah.
Absolutely. So those are the things that are going to really eat into your time, though. The framing, the electrical, the plumbing. And so those guys will be...
drywall, whatever. Mm-hmm. So do you have any sort of agreements that you're going to make people sign about reducing your liability if they get hurt here? Or is that
hold harmless?
Uh-huh.
Thought about it. I'm not sure. I guess the key is if they need to be insurance licensed.
So you're going to verify all that.
I mean, I think that's the insurance that I carry in commercial. That's one of kind of the terms in there.
Uh-huh. So we have one of those agreements that you can use from Hermann London.
Hold harmless.
I don't know if that's exactly what it's called, but I had a contractor one time that cut himself while he was working on my house, and I'm like, all I need is for this guy to see a Brown and Crouppen billboard on his way home from the hospital. You know what I mean? And so from then on, I make everybody sign that kind of agreement, because I don't want to be, I don't want my project to be like super liable if somebody
getting hurt, which
hurts himself. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the nature of the project, though, too.
It is the nature of the project, but we can mitigate our risks as much as possible.
Yes.
Which you've done financially by having extra money available. You've done financially by hopefully overbidding in your mind what you think things might cost, which we can do by getting multiple bids, having good agreements with people. So let's talk about what problems you've already had. You've owned the place for a month. You said you haven't done anything. Have you already come across things? You said the trees. Yeah,
so the trees, like I said, that's going to be a little bit more, I think, like what you said, it rings so true. It's nice to kind of work in the property and on the property, even though it may not do everything and it's not the best use of time. What it does allow me to do is intimately get to know the property enough to know what we might need to do. So as I'm here, I'm like, you know what? I really do want to take down a bunch of trees to really kind of carry off. And so the best time to do that is all together versus kind of later on down the road adding more services like that. So I think it's nice to sit in here and kind of try and picture what we want to do. For one, all this framing is going to go. It doesn't work with what I want, the layout. The bedroom that they've framed out doesn't even have a window in it, so you can't call it a bedroom. because you have
I see a empty bottle of wine over there, so I guess you guys have been over here kind of thinking and just talking. And
Yes, so I had one of my girlfriends come over and help me with kind of like think through some of the layouts because it is extraordinarily challenging to try and fit everything that you want to fit into this space that the buyers want today. And it's a very small space, and it's not very long, and it's definitely not very wide. We're talking 14 feet wide. That's it.
Wow. Okay. So do we actually need a bedroom? I mean, can it just be all open and they can like have a bed in the middle?
I don't know that that's desirable to today's buyer. So that, again, we go back to trying to hammer out some of the layouts that really would please today's buyer.
Right. Okay. Let's see. What else should we talk about here today?
Nothing. I mean, this is just the start of it. I think we'll kind of like try and do these shorter podcasts on the rehab to kind of allow people to follow maybe some of the progress and learn from my mistakes, because on every project there's mistakes, I think.
So if we come back in a month, what's going to be done?
Yeah, probably in a month. Hopefully at least
the new roof. So the trees will be down.
Hopefully the trees will be down, the roof and tuck pointing.
Are you guys going to try to like demo this framing yourself?
You know, I have a guy who can demo this pretty inexpensively, and that's where I'm like, that might be a better use of my time. I've spent enough time inside, and really I'm kind of going around with the contractor, this guy that I've been trying to hammer out some deals with on the layout, and we've kind of gone back and forth so much that I can't even get the kitchen down because it's hard to see this space. And one of the things I always do in a rehab is you'll see some of this tape. I'll go in and lay out spaces with tape.
Oh, these are example walls?
Yeah, so some of my taping and some of my 2x4s are kind of some walls. And so he's like, what you really need to do, he goes, is just gut it. And then you'll have this nice blank canvas that maybe you can think through some of your troubled spots in trying to really finalize your layout.
So would Ikea just come over here and design something for you?
They could.
I mean, is that a service they offer?
It is. I think it's a $250 service for them to come out and design a kitchen, but you get that back if you buy the cabinets.
They just do the kitchen, though? I mean, you go into Ikea and they have
I don't know if they have other planning services. I know that the kitchen one you can do.
Okay. Because you go in there and it's like, here's 30 square foot. Like, look how you can live.
There are other furniture stores that do that, that offer design services, and they will come out.
Okay. Well, I cannot wait to come back here in a month or so. Maybe we'll give you 2 months just to get it going and see how it's going. I really hope anyone watching or listening will submit questions, comments, concerns. I know Brad Evans will comment and ask if you need flooring. You know.
Okay.
And so we look forward to following up. Thanks for letting us in, sharing your numbers with us, and
Absolutely.
I hope you'll continue to as the project goes, because this is super valuable to anyone watching and listening that's thinking, man, that's what I really wish I was doing with my Wednesday.
Yes. Well, I hope someone else takes something away from this.
Well, so for everybody listening, thank you very much. And we look forward to having, I guess you listen or watch our next podcast. If you have any questions, it's podcast@hermanlondon.com. Any suggestions for future podcasts? And we're looking forward to the company picnic Friday, by the way. I'm glad to hear you're coming.
Yes, of course. Of
Awesome.
course I'll be there.
Are you going to be arm wrestling?
I don't know if I want to embarrass the other girls like that, but...
Okay. All right. So anyway, thanks again and take care.